So Victor is a biochemistry major who comes to us from Hanoi, Vietnam. He's been really active on campus not just in our biochemistry major, but in our soccer program, where he and I have often faced off as opposing goalies over the years. And he's also been really involved in our Vietnamese student organization, which has kind of really blossomed, I think, under his guidance. I've heard part of this talk already, and it's been really exciting to hear about how Victor's been able to bring his science skill set and background to the industry, and how the market really drives some of our development as such. Victor is also the first person to teach me about coronavirus, because we had a medicinal chemistry tutorial last winter where he actually gave me an hour-long presentation, probably in January, about the coronavirus and how it was actually pretty dangerous. And at that point, I could sit back and say, "Oh yes, that sounds like a terrible problem for someone else to have." So I can't say that I caught me unawares, because I should have been listening to Victor. And so don't repeat my mistake. Let's give him our full attention, and I'll turn it over to him.
Thank you, David, for an awesome introduction. Hello, everyone. My name is Victor Nguyen. Welcome to my senior capstone presentation. And my talk today, titled Regulatory Affairs, Genetically Modified Food Classification. I want to take you through my time as a regulatory affairs specialist during working for Abbott Nutrition 2 summers ago, working with the GMO classifications projects. Before I start, I want you guys to take a minute with me to watch this video about food labeling, because we cannot transfer the audio from Zoom to your computer. Please mind me to read the subtitle instead. That's all. Just it is just an exaggeration, but even though there are too many of them, like this kind of label or food certification, these labels actually appear for a reason. We sometimes have a friend who say that they only eat halal or kosher food, or another friend who always go for organic eggs whenever she goes for grocery shopping. When people are getting more and more cautious about what they buy and eat, the label become an important factor that help the consumer choose the correct products that they are looking for. So this also help food companies that have a variety of certificated products will increase in their consumer diversity and satisfaction. These labels don't appear out of thin air. You can just make a products and then call it, hey, this is gluten free, or hey, this is organic. There is a profession that surrounded this creation, and they are the one who create this beautiful label, and they are called regulatory affairs. So as a biochemistry or chemistry graduate, there are a wide variety of career options for us to follow after graduation. I am certain that many of you have heard about this profession above. However, the term regulatory affairs seems really strange and new to some of you. I don't know about this term as well until 2 years ago when I was looking for an internship. And so I really want to guide you guys through the overview about what actually regulatory affair is. So regulatory affair is a profession developed for the desire of the government to control the safety and efficacy of products in areas including pharmaceutical, medicines, medical device, pesticide, or cosmetic. And by the company, they are responsible for the discovery, testing, manufacturing, and marketing of this product. They want to ensure that they supply products that are safe and make a worldwide contribution to the public health and the human welfare. So in other words, regulatory affairs define the amount of vitamin you should take a day, whether or not the food you buy is considered organic or not, or even define the term what is organic. So why are they so important? When I was working on a project about ingredient naming guidance, I saw 5 different names for vitamin E on a different document. So the vendor, the company, and the suppliers all have their own way to say the same vitamin. And not all of them are usable on the packaging. And customer only notice one is vitamin E. So when I asked Gilman, the head of the analytical chemistry department at Abbott Nutrition, about which name should I go for the guidance, he said, quote, "You cannot combine natural vitamin E and synthetic vitamin E because the triple R alpha tocopherol acetate, which is natural vitamin E, has approximately twice the biological activity of the ORAC alpha tocopherol, which is synthetic vitamin E. And because of the differences in configuration in the stereo center, as you can see the picture on the right, it affects the absorption rate and metabolism rate and toxicology of the nutrient. Therefore, it is crucial for the ingredients to be labeled correctly to give the consumer the accurate information about the products that they are buying. And regulatory affair is a really dynamic and growing field with new regulations are proposed every single day, changing from country to country. So my summer projects as a regulatory affairs specialist start when the USDA, which stands for the United States Department of Agriculture, proposed a new rules that require all the US food manufacturers to disclose information about their genetically modified food ingredient in their products. So compliant to this rule, we require Abbott Nutrition to identify which ingredients in their products are considered GMO per final rules definition, and which Abbott products must be labeled accordingly. So during this summer, I was hired to help them to build a platform that follow this regulation and classify which products must be labeled accordingly. This platform has to be dynamic to follow upcoming USDA final rule and update the new Abbott products that are coming out in the future. So what GMO stand for and why do we have to have them labeled? And that's because GMO stand for genetically modified organisms. So the ability to obtain a specific DNA clone using recombinant DNA technique that have been make it possible to add the DNA of one organism to the genome of another. This added gene is called the change gene. And when the change gene insert itself into the chromosome and pass to the progeny of a new component of the genome, the results are called genetically modified organisms, or in the USDA term is bioengineered organisms. The USDA, surprisingly, they choose the term bioengineer to represent genetically modified food in the US. One example, the cry toxin that in the BT corn, which is really popular genetically modified corn grown in the US. They are highly effective to kill insects, and they have been shown to be safe for consumption by mammals. So when the pest ingests the corn or the corn leaves, it also ingests crytoxin. This toxin binding will cause cell lysis, which then kill the pest. However, this crytoxin does not cause any harm or cell lysis in mammal, which in turn safe to digest by human. As you can see on the right over here, this is the type of corn that we are familiar with today. However, corn don't always look like this. The left of the picture you can see over here are the previous ancestor of the today corn, and they um, today corn are the results of selective breeding that change in the DNA of this plant. The DNA change results in beneficial modification to the plant, which is manifested to the change in protein expression. Some notable benefit of genetically modification, as you can see over here, are herbicide, drought, pesticide resistant. Genetic modification also help the plants to increase their nutrition intake, like the golden rice in Japan, when they added the vitamin A to the rice, so it will help reduce malfunction in small children in Japan. All of these benefits combined really help to make the food more affordable and make it less time for the farmer to get the plants for the customer. And I think it's really interesting to see the um, com- composition difference between the um, genetically modified plants and conventional plants. So when you're looking at that, they both have the same nutrient profile, like the same amount of amino acid, fatty acid, carbohydrate. They also have the same viral DNA, which is the promoter and terminator sequence to support transcription and translation. In order for the genetically modified plants to grow, viral DNA is often included in the DNA sequence inserted into the plants. Those viral DNA are also found on conventional plants due to the presence of these virus in the environment. However, because by using the recombinant DNA technique, GMO plants will have a different event DNA sequence than conventional plants. This will alter the RNA expression and thus create a genetically modified protein, or what we call is a transgenic protein, which results in the change of the plants like herbicide and pest resistant. So what do those difference and similarity really mean? For me, when someone say, I make food choice to ensure I don't eat GMO food, um, this as a regulatory affair and toxicologist, what I hear is I want my exposure to the only components in the genetically modified plants that are different from a conventional plants, which is event DNA, RNA, and transgenic protein to be zero. So this brings us to the topic of GMO food toxicity. Because despite a well-established pre-market approval process and many published studies, the public opinion about the safety of genetically modified organisms are really mixed. So some people think that GMO food are safe to eat and safe to ingest, but some say that genetically modified will never be safe for human consumption. So are these GMO food safe to consume by human? It depends on which side of the fence that you are on, and it is not up to me to decide. I can only show you the science behind and what the science say surrounding this. So one of the primary concepts of toxicology is that the risk of toxicity from any compound is a product of both hazard and exposure. So the extent of exposure depends on the kind of food that you are consuming. For example, direct consumption of GMO food like BT corn have a detectable amount of DNA and transgenic protein on it. For highly refined food, which is a food that are processed to strip down the original nutrient content like fiber, like for example, oil or refined sugar, have undetectable amount of DNA and transgenic protein. For DNA and transgenic protein in animal feed, they do not transfer over into animal products. And food that produce with genetically modified bacteria, like citric acid, also have undetectable amount of DNA and transgenic protein. So as you can see, the last three example, when the exposure is considered zero, risk is also zero as well. But we do have the exposure, so the risk is still there, especially from the direct consumption of GMO food. So as a regulatory affair, It is not my job to decide which side of the fence that you are on. However, it is the consumer right to know whether the food we are buying is GMO or not. My job is to provide the consumer the accurate information about the products they are buying. So this got to my summer projects as a regulatory affair. When I first got these projects, there is actually no clear direction from the company of what to do and what to use. All I know is to identify which ingredients are considered GMO based on the USDA regulation and which about nutrition products must be labeled accordingly. And I have to come up with the plan on my own. My goal for this project is to develop a platform that will automatically classify all about nutrition products that are sold in the US into three product tiers that follow the USDA guideline. So the first tier I have over here is a product that don't have any GMO ingredient. Uh, I mean the products that have or even one GMO ingredients will be put into tier one. Um, however, and then any products that don't have any GMO ingredients, however, have just even one highly refined ingredient in it, will be put on tier two. The reason why they have their own tier over here, because USDA at this time, they haven't decided whether or not highly refined food will be considered GMO or non-GMO. So for this reason, in order to prepare for two outcome when the final rule come out, I had to create a separate tier for this type of products. And then the last tier that contain all the products that have neither GMO ingredient nor highly refined ingredients. This product will be considered non-GMO, and it is totally up to the manufacturer to decide if they want their products to be labeled non-GMO or not. And I have seen a lot of companies saying that this will be, they would love to do this because it's really help with their marketing. So after visualizing the three product tiers that I was aiming for, I created a project frameworks which start with the obtaining the master list of all about nutrition products, which include 279 products with the all ingredient list, ingredient information and product classification. And so I want to know you guys to know that regulatory affairs require really strong communication and collaboration skill. You're not only working with people in regulatory, you also have to constant come and talk with other people from different departments. For example, I have to obtain all this information from the regulatory affair and the quality assurance department. And then I work directly with the people in toxicology and analytical chemistry department in order to manually assess each ingredient from the master ingredient list to the three product tiers, that is GMO, highly refined, and non-GMO. When I got all the information about this ingredient, it will help me to develop the base plan for my assessment, which then start to phase three when I try to develop coding programs using Excel 2017 and the VBA editor. Because of how large the project is with how many ingredients I involved, I have to use the macro coding to prepare, to process and classify all the information automatically. And I create this for you. This is the visual way to see how I make the computer coding work with the information. So when I want to know which tier the product fall into, I start with logging in the product ingredient list, and the code will automatically go through the master list of ingredient and then provide the GMO classification for that ingredients in the using the ingredient code. And then after they scan it, they will provide the GMO classification, and then they start asking a question. And when they look all over the products, so if this product have any GMO ingredient, if they found any GMO ingredient in the product, this product will be considered tier one, which is GMO. If the answer is no, then it will keep asking the question, if this product have any highly refined ingredient. If they don't have any highly refined ingredient, and if they have any highly refined ingredient, it will be put into tier 2, which is highly refined food. And if the answer is no, it will be put into tier 3, which is don't have any GMO ingredient and also don't have any highly refined ingredients. And this tier is considered non-GMO. So for the result of my product assessment, out of 227 product assessment, 164 of them need to be labeled. This account for 59% of the total products that are sold and manufacturing in the US for Abbott Nutrition. And only 73 of them are highly refined ingredients. And so this only account for 26%. And the least amount is non-GMO with only 39 products. This only account for 14% of the total amount of products Abbott have sold and manufactured in the US. If we separate the product into product type like pediatric, diabetes, adult, or sport, we can see that only pediatric products have non-GMO category. All the other product type like diabetes, adult, and sport don't have any non-GMO products. This might happen because pediatrics have been known as a really sensitive category when parents have been asking for non-GMO options even before the regulation come out. So that's result. That's why that Abbott Nutrition already have some non-GMO products for pediatric, but not from the other category. Some of the main ingredients that influence the classification, including soy protein, soy fiber, soy lecithin, and soy crisps. These are in the majority of the products, and thus the reason why the product are considered GMO. This is definitely the reason, why, because 80% of the crop of the soy grown in the US are genetically modified. This is that's why the wide variety of products are being considered GMO. And I want to tell a notable mention for highly refined ingredient, which are maltodextrin. This is a polysaccharide that is used as a food addictive, and this is the main reason why most of the products are considered highly refined ingredient. So the final assessment look like this on the Excel spreadsheet. As you can see over here, this assignment provide the product name, the product classification. Over here, if this PE stand for bioengineer, which is GMO. HRI stand for highly refined ingredients. And so you can see that they have product classification over here. They also show us the ingredients that drive the classification, which here you can see some of the ingredients that drive the product into highly refined ingredients. Some of the ingredient that results in the classification as GMO. And so before, okay. So now I also want to talk about the final rules of the USDA and the timeline of the project as well. Because when I first worked as a regulatory affairs specialist in Abbott, it is May 2018. This is when they published the proposed rules for GMO classification in the US. And this is the time when they open for all manufacturer and scientists to comment on the proposed rule. And on July 3rd, they're gonna close the comment period. And the final rule came out on November that year. The final rules have the effective date in January 1st this year. Is when all manufacturing in the US have to label their product accordingly. And there's some instance for small company will be on 2021. It's their deadline. So the final rule include exemption for a number of different ingredients. As you can see, highly refined ingredients now that do not need GMO labeling. Um, for incidental addictive, you also don't have to have any GMO labeling if you only have incidental addictive as GMO in your products. Food derived from animal fat GMO are also not need to be labeled. And food that already certified by the national organic programs are exempt from this regulation. Because of the final regulation exempt highly refined ingredients from the GMO list, the classification now look more like this. As you can see over here, there is a rising with 41% of non-GMO products, a huge difference from the initial assessment. And also over here, you can start seeing that all the other category also have some non-GMO product as well. And this, as you can see, because of highly refined ingredient, now consider non-GMO category. So the way that regulatory affair communicate with the consumer is from the label. So as I mentioned before, food certifications provide the consumer with fast identification of the products they are buying. So this is how the USDA allow the company and the manufacturer to choose the label. There are three main options for disclosure. The first one is text, which just basically say this is contained bioengineered food ingredient. There's also a symbol option. As you can see, they haven't decided at that time which label they're gonna use, symbol they're gonna use for the final regulation. But these are the three options that they provide to the manufacturer. And then the last one is electronic disclosure. This one is more subtle. So you have to scan the code to go to the website that will provide you all the food information. Like for example, if it's GMO or not, if there any other things that they want to know about. And also text messages is also part of this option as well. This option is a little bit more not um, not really open and not really telling the consumer directly what is happening in their food. So actually, there's a lot of controversial for the last option, and people tend to go to the first two options. And I want to introduce you. They recently give out the final GMO label, and it looked like this. Some people say that this label with bioengineer instead of GMO is too misleading. Other people said that the field and the sun that you can see over here is too cheerful for something as scary as GMO, and they have to be like a danger style symbol with cross over it. But some people say that it is not a bad thing, like GMO is not a bad thing that need to be condemned as something that dangerous and people have to stay away from it. So what do you think? Do you think that this label convey the accurate information for the consumer? Um, Thank you, Dina, but she already proposed a poll, and please take a minute to go over it and let me see what is your thought. Mm, awesome. So the final poll results with 4 people vote for yes, and the majority people vote for yes. So I think personally, I like this symbol as well. I don't like something too negative or like too dangerous. But yeah, I also go for the Jess team over here. It's awesome. Thank you. So, mm, so that is the end of my presentation. Thank you guys so much for listening, and thank you guys for um, participating in the pool and listening to my talk. I want to give special thanks for Dina and Professor Debert who helped me go through this presentation. And I want to thanks people in the chemistry 680 who also help give me really wonderful feedback to help me to um, deliver this presentation today. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Victor, for such a wonderful talk. Did anybody have any questions? Again, you can raise your hand in the participants, you can chat, or you can just speak up.
Can you talk a little bit about the how the government regulations play a role here? So, you know, if someone were to label something, how is that checked up on, and sort of what are the consequences of labeling something incorrectly?
Oh, so um, ev everything that you want to put onto your packagings have to go through the people in regulation. The reason why is because you can just freely just assume that your products is gluten-free or some GMO. Um, they have to go through a testing process from it's not from the company but from the people who invest, who actually working on the product to see if this product will be considered the exact claim that you make. So every claims that you have on your packaging, even just word like this is the this is the best non-GMO product. Some you can make something like that. Um, every, there's a rules, certain specific regulation that people have to follow to make sure that um, mm, the make sure that everything on the package is follow the regulation because what it does is they have the government have a specific department that basically looking for the errors that people can make like this as well. They will go through the packaging and they will see if any claim that you make is actually accurate. And so um, this the reason why they're doing this because they want to make sure the integrity is there and the company do give the accurate information about what they are. So I think it's a good thing for them to have something like that, a system like that.
Yeah, okay.
Victor, will Abbott be using this information to make any changes in their product lineup if they see that their non-GMO products sell better than their GMO ones or anything like that? Do you know if they're going to use that information to make changes,
Uh,
or is it mostly just to comply?
Actually, I would say they do because one of the meeting I got with the people in the company, they do really interested in the core products, which is one of the best selling products they are looking for, and see how this gonna impact their product line. And they told me that they want to know exactly what ingredients that drive the classification of the products because they would love to see if they can make some adjustment to be able to launch a new products that will be labeled as non-GMO in the future. So I think for your answer your question, I think the answer is yes. They definitely also follow the regulation, but they also want to improve the products in a different way as well.
Hey, Clarissa, did you have a question?
It's more of an objective question, but I guess who designs the possible labels they can use for this, and how do you feel about the label looking like a smiley face?
Yeah, I know, right? This is not up to the manufacturer or the laboratory. This is actually came straight from the USDA seminar. And as you can look over here, these are the first options.
Yeah.
And so the USDA work with, they have their own science department that will look through this, look through the whole definition to try to figure out what exactly GMO is, and also like want to design what the symbol gonna look like as well. So I would say that there might be some influence from the outside as well to the making of the symbol, but I'm not so sure. But um, this, for some reason, this symbol caused a lot of controversy as well because of how cheerful it is, and also they're using a total new terminology instead of normal GMO symbol that people are familiar with, or like people from all around the world that have been using. So this really caused a lot of controversy, but the people in the science department in USDA, they choose this symbol as their final version. So yeah.
A little better. Better than a smiley face.
It actually does look like a smiley face. Yeah.
Well,
This one doesn't as much, but the other ones definitely did.
Oh yeah, this one too.
Uh-huh.
This one too.
I mean, to be honest, like the smiley face aside, like, you know, you could argue that the fact that you see like the rows in the bottom, right? That's kind of a good nod to like, yes, plants don't grow in straight rows like that on their own. This human hands are involved in this process.
Ah,
Anyways,
that's a nice touch.
it's freshman studies,
Matthew,
man.
did you have a question?
Yeah.
Okay, and then I think then you, Daniel.
Oh, sorry.
No, you first.
Oh, okay. So Huang, at the beginning of your presentation, you're talking about the cry,
Toxins.
whatever it was, toxin. Yeah.
Mhm.
And you're talking about how it affects only insects, and you just said that it doesn't affect like mammals.
Mhm.
But you don't say why it doesn't. Is it just like we don't have any way.
Oh, okay. Because of the biting of the toxin. So when the people ingest the cry protein from the leaves, this cry protein will be break down into cry toxin, which then will bind into the epithelial cell of the epithelial receptor of the cell, and this will cause cell lysis in the pest. But it's have been shown that this will not cause any cell lysis in mammal, mainly because of the bindings of the crytoxin unable to bind to the human epithelial cell.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. So I think this might due to the receptor differences.
Okay, cool. Do you know what happens? Okay, so follow-up question. Do you know what happens to it if our body gets rid of it, or if it just bioaccumulates?
Yeah, it's just bioaccumulates.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Daniel?
So you were working with Excel and Visual Basic in Excel. Had you known Visual Basic already, or did you have to learn that over the summer?
This actually a learning skill, because when I first know that, I just learned some advanced coding, and it really actually does help me. But then when I come to more more difficult and extreme tasks, you have to require the VBA as reliable tools for such uh, really demanding a task like that. So I contact with some of the people in the regulatory affair, and actually some of them, one of them, his name is Huge. He is what people call the magician in the department, because he was so good with Excel and especially VBA, and he has helped me tremendously over the summer to help me create the coding as well for over and also it's like I also learning and because he is in Chicago and I was in Columbus, so we have to video call most of the time. So like basically he teach me along the way, and I tell him what I want for the concept, and what of the flow, and what the next step that I want to go. And then it's about the learning about how he think that we will benefit from me. And also we have to solve bugs together, which is kind of take a lot of time to figure out why the code is not working. And yeah, but it was really fun to finally figure out how the coding work. And also when the time when I was gathering all the information about the master list of the ingredient and the product list for Abbott Nutrition, it's take me around a month and a half to be able to gather all the information that I need from the vendor, from the third party manufacturer, and from the company itself. So it took quite a while. And during that time, I spent my time studying VBA and also doing other projects as well. So it's just a matter of multitasking at that time. But yeah, I think it's really beneficial if you can learn new skill along the way, and especially coding, because this current world in the industry, people really valuable biotechnologies, something that similar to that.
I have a question, if that's okay. Who is going, like, so if Abbott introduces a new ingredient or a new product, who will be responsible? Did they hire someone like you still, or is the person who develops the product going to be in charge of that? Who's going to be in charge of running your code or running this analysis?
So after I finished my internship on September, Clifford, which is the person who helped me with the coding, he actually take over the projects, and also transfer it to the people in regulatory affairs in Columbus. And I just have a conversation with him recently, and he told me that the people in regulatory affairs are still using the document until today, especially since they have some new products that are coming out soon. So they run it through the document to see if there are any problem with the products, if the product need to be labeled or not. So it's really cool to see that they still using my document, and they still using that for future update of new products. So yeah, it's pretty cool to know that about that.
Awesome. Any other questions? Okay, let's thank Victor once again. Really great job, and thank you for this. We'll hang out here for a few minutes. Otherwise, I will see you when I see you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Good job, Mom.